All right, this session is called Taking the Fear Out of LScript, and I think you'll see why I say that in just a little bit here. But let's just talk about the idea of why you should know LScript. And there's a certain level of fear I don't want you to have. If you're not a programmer, if you're not a math whiz, welcome to the club. You are exactly who this is aimed at. But in order to show you why you should care about this, I need to give you a real practical example. So let me give you the kind of minor irritating thing in LightWave that comes up all the time. And I'm going to show you a plugin you may not know about. It's over here on your system. Most likely it is sort of hidden under the Construct Utility Additional menu. And I actually have a lot to say about this menu some other time. But for right now, let me point out that there's a lot of really good plugins sort of hidden there. Let me click on this so you can see it a little bit better. See, it's at the top of my system, but it might be a different place in yours. It's this one called Logo. And Logo's a neat little plugin because it allows you to type in text and automatically extrudes it. Now, this isn't really a tutorial about this plugin specifically. I just want to show you it's handy because it lets you type it in here where it's harder to screw up the typing. And the auto extrusion saves you a step. So I type in some text, I hit OK. And then I'm going to hit the A key to fit this in, and there, that's the way that plugin works. So what's the minor irritating part that I'm talking about? Well, the part to me that's a little irritating is that it's too thick. As far as I'm concerned, this logo is way too deep. With a logo, now you may have a different aesthetic judgment. I'm just telling you mine. This logo, I'm going to have a very difficult time in layout because it's so thick that we're going to start getting some weird perspective errors when we change, turn it a little bit. It's hard to see through. But again, really the whole point I want to make here is not that your logo shouldn't be this thick. It's that I don't like my logos this thick. I like them maybe half that or a little less. And when I run this plugin, every time I run it again, I type in the new text, and then I change the extrusion depth to something smaller, 0.2. But then when I bring up the plugin again, I have to do, another time. I have to change 0.2. And if you're a LightWave user, you may just go, well, that's life. You got to deal with that. Some of the tools have settings and you can't change them. And that's true for some of them. So I've set the problem for you. It's that I would prefer a different default on this plugin. Okay, let's talk about, let's leave the problem for a second. I'll come back to it. But let's talk about this idea that if you look on your hard drive, if you saw a file that's .jpg, you would know it's a JPEG image. If it's .mp3, it's an MP3 image. You see this? It's a .lwo. You can tell that that's a LightWave object because you probably know that. So let me talk about some file extensions that you should know. And here's examples: LS, LSC, and .p. And these are all file extensions for plugins in LightWave. .p plugins, these are written by programmers using, C++ and the LightWave software development kit. There's not that many people who can write these .p plugins, maybe 100 in the world by my count. Maybe a few more, but not really a lot because you need some specialized knowledge. Furthermore, you need specialized tools. Not anyone can write a .p plugin. You need a C++ compiler of some kind. Now, these .p plugins, if I try to open and view them in WordPad, you'll notice that they are just gibberish. And that's because these are compiled. If you're a computer programmer, you know all this, but these are compiled plugins. What that means is they've been sort of compacted into a form that you can't read it, but that will run. So that's what a .p plugin is. And there's a lot of great plugins that are .p plugins, but the point is you can't read them, you can't edit them, you can't really do much with them, except run them, which is fine. That's what they're there for, but you couldn't open it up and edit it. If you look at, I got a drawer full of Steve Worley plugins, Sasquatch and Polk and everything. These are all .p plugins. Okay. Now, we have another type, which is an LSC. That stands for, whenever you see an LSC plugin, that stands for LScript compiled. And that means that it's written in LScript. What is LScript? It's LightWave's built-in programming language. And one of the great things about it is you do not need a compiler. You can write it in a word processor or something like WordPad or TextEdit or whatever. LSC means it's compiled. And we'll talk about compiling it in another lesson here. But for part 3 of the lesson here, let's just show that an LSC plugin, like a .p plugin, when you open it up, it's gibberish because it's been compiled. Now, let's talk about, to me, the most interesting kind, a .ls plugin. Now, if you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you do not program, you've never programmed LScript in your life. But what I want you to, and if you have, good for you, but if you haven't, all you need to do is to be able to read. An LS plugin can be opened up and take a look. You can read it. Actual English words. And, oops. Just trying to make this a little bit bigger here. And even if you don't understand what all this is, you can kind of read through it and go, okay, define width 10, define height 10. I can read this and I sort of have an idea what's going on. And there's even little notes in here. Okay, so let's talk about the problem we had here, which is I don't like the default in this logo plugin, always 50 centimeters. Now, again, if you are a person who does not program LScript, let's just pop back over here, and I'm going to find that plugin. Where the logo plugin is in your LightWave directory, wherever that is on your system, in LScripts, and under model. And you'll see there's a whole slew of LScripts in here. And one of them, if we go down here, is logo. Now again, if you're a person who's never programmed LScript before, I'm talking to you. I'm going to open this up, and you tell me how you change the extrusion depth so it doesn't come up to that 0.5 value every time. I'll wait. Go ahead. Here it is. Take a look. You're reading up at the top. You see who wrote it. Keep going. Don't know what this stuff means because I don't program LScript, but I don't need to. Blah, 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 stuff about loading fonts. Hey, look, right here. Extrusion depth 0.5. My whole point here is you do not have to be afraid. Any .ls plugin, you load it up, you look at it, and you change its depth to 0.2, hit save. Again, I'm not a programmer here. I'm not acting like a programmer. I'm a lazy LightWave user who can read, because I don't like changing it to 0.5 every time. Change it to 0.2, save it, close it, and now when I run that plugin, 0.2. Now into the text, and there you go. So that's the principle here, is that these .ls plugins, do not be afraid. You can open them up, you can read them. And so your homework is, you've got just a whole bunch of these that are in your LScripts directory. The first step in starting to figure out LScript is to not be afraid to open these up. It's almost like your computer. A lot of people are afraid when they first get a computer. If my dad were to have a computer, he'd never open it up to install a modem card in his life. So he'd go to a store and they'd charge him $50 to do it. Well, if you work with computers, you know that's crazy. It's easy to open your computer up and do a simple operation like that. So what I'm urging you to do is go through, see what you have for these .ls plugins. Take a look at some of them and just right-click, open them up, and start to read them. And if you take a second to start to read them, you'll see there's a lot of things that you can understand and potentially change. Plus, a lot of these .ls plugins have been commented. These are all comments. These aren't code that runs. So this is the first step in overcoming your fear of LScript, is take a look at some of the ones that are on your system already.